Okay, back for part two. We're going to talk about post-postmodernism. As the 20th century closed, postmodernism began to wane, newer philosophy emerged. The worst named philosophy of all time, post-postmodernism. At the time Fallout 1 and 2 were made, post-postmodernism was already emerging, but today it's really supplanted postmodernism in a lot of circles, especially in academia. One flavor of post-postmodernism is metamodernism. Metamodern narratives are known for their oscillation between modernism and postmodernism. It's been compared to like a pendulum swinging back and forth. Metamodernism seeks to reclaim elements of modernism that were deconstructed by postmodernism, but also will swing back to doing the deconstruction if it begins to reclaim too much. In a lot of ways, post-postmodernism is a critique of the overly cynical postmodernism. Postmodernism is often just against everything and rarely for anything. Metamodernism seeks to reclaim some universal objective truth and meaning, while also deconstructing power structures in others. Metamodernism is then in some sense opposed to becoming either too apathetic or too fanatical. Fanaticism will lead to deconstruction, while apathy will lead back to sincerity, hence the swinging pendulum. Metamodernism also tends to be more focused on feelings. While modernism held logic up as the be-all end-all of meaning, and postmodernism denied meaning altogether, metamodernism sees meaning in the emotions that a work causes the audience to feel. Your feelings under metamodernism can be the meaning of that work. How it makes you feel can be legitimate. Another part of postmodernism is post-irony. Post-irony is hard to define. It's a form of irony in which the level of sincerity or intent is unclear. There's less meaning in it than in an ironic deconstruction, but it's there. Another way to put it is post-irony is irony that's aware of its own irony. Meme humor is post-ironic. A meme without context often has no meaning to the viewer, may not have a clear meaning to its creator, but it's also often aware that it is a meme and that its meaning is not clear, and sometimes that is the point. The newer Fallout games, 3, 4, and New Vegas, as well as the show, are all metamodern, though they do kind of exist on a spectrum. New Vegas tends to lean back into postmodernism as it attempts to continue the postmodern narrative of the originals. 4 and the show tend to lean more heavily into metamodernism with their focus on spectacle and emotion, and I think 3 falls somewhere in the middle of all that, but all are fundamentally metamodernist narratives. The show and 4 oscillate between modernist and postmodernist in the most obvious way by juxtaposing the pre-war and post-war worlds more than any of the other games. As I said before, the pre-war world really represents modernism, and the post-war world really represents postmodernism, so that juxtaposition is metamodernism. New Vegas does this too, however. One good example is the Legion. They wear football gear designed to copy Roman soldiers, and they look goofy as hell because of it. But they're also legitimately terrifying villains who crucify people and treat women as property. New Vegas swings between taking its factions seriously, which is modernism, and leaving it up to interpretation, which is best, since they all see themselves as best, and that's postmodernism. I personally don't think there's any way to see the Legion as anything other than villains, but that does stem from my own beliefs. I can comprehend how someone with reprehensible morals could come to a different conclusion. I can object to the Legion's fascism and misogyny, but a fascist or a misogynist is necessarily going to feel differently. House's ending might be a clearer example. New Vegas presents House as someone who might actually be qualified to be an autocrat. People like to compare House to Elon Musk, but frankly, that's an insult to House. House is what Musk wishes he could be. The player still has room in the narrative, however, to object to House's rule based on ideology, personal disdain, just not caring. Fallout 4's factions are treated equally in much the same way, but the game just simply doesn't impart as much meaning to its factions. While New Vegas deals with liberal democracy, authoritarianism, libertarianism, and anarchism, Fallout 4 deals with more vague ideals. Science, freedom, community, and, well, the Brotherhood. I think Bethesda games just make the Brotherhood of Steel its own idea for the sake of itself, so yeah. Fallout 3 really doesn't do this with its main quest. It does do this to some degree in side quests. One example that comes to mind is Tenpenny Tower, where the narrative swings back and forth between trying to say bigotry's bad and giving the player a shocking twist ending that undermines that very message. Which, Bethesda, is that really the message you want to undermine like that? Like, you know what? Never mind. The post-ironic humor is especially strong in the show. I've heard people call it Marvel humor, where serious moments are immediately undermined by meta jokes. This is your, no way, that just happened, and are you guys seeing this kind of humor? But that's post-irony. Because it's post-irony, it's hard to ascertain or ascribe meaning to these moments. It's hard to know the intent of the moment is. Are we supposed to laugh at the Minutemen wearing colonial hats or take seriously their predicament in Concord? Are we supposed to understand why the Atom Cats are greasers? Or is it just supposed to be self-referential? New Vegas, again, does this less. Groups are given concrete justifications for why they do what they do, and so it leans more into sincerity. But the show does it far more. Much more of it is post-ironic, and there's much less sincerity. An example might be Lucy questioning Maximus on the Brotherhood's mission. She really doesn't undermine their beliefs at all, yet she and Maximus both laugh about it. And it's not clear if that's supposed to be a sincere attempt at deconstruction or a playful humor that's not meant to be taken seriously. I mentioned memes before, how they represent post-irony. And what does the show give us? Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter. It doesn't make sense. How did a mumbling zombie shuffle past the Mojave outpost across the NCR? But it doesn't matter, because what matters is that scene makes you feel what Maximus's parents felt in that moment. At least that's the perspective of the storytellers. I'm trying hard to be objective here, and it's difficult. Fallout 1 and 2 use the 1950s ray gun aesthetic ironically. Fallout 3 and 4 tend to use it post-ironically, using it because it's the look of the brand, regardless that the hyper-consumption is at odds with the original irony. And it's worth pointing out, Fallout 4 actually breaks down this aesthetic irony of it. Fallout 4 moved away from being a 1950s-inspired apocalypse. The Institute uses forms that resemble 1970s and 80s retrofuturism, while Demon's weird cyberpunk-style quests in Far Harbor evoke the 1990s. And not even the founding premise was safe from the post-postmodernism. Another flavor of post-postmodernism is performatism. Performatism is all about using art to show higher values. It's not the complex meanings of the modernists or the postmodernists, though. It's general vague values, usually. Love, bravery, excitement, fear. It's about creating in your art the artificial conditions to make your audience experience the emotions within the work. I mean, look at how many people have strong opinions on the factions of New Vegas. Emil Pagliarillo has basically said that they write the game for those cool moments. They want the player feeling a certain way at certain moments in the game. Performatist protagonists tend to follow certain trends. They tend to be separate figures that are outside the structures of their time, and they try to influence others to bring about the values that they represent, and that's both the courier and the soul survivor. Immersion, I think, is also a part of this performative idea that each scene is about making you feel certain emotions. Fans of the newer games often balk at the isometric top-down view of the older games. I think it's because forcing an emotion on the player is easier in first-person mode with voice acting. It's possible to make a player feel something in an isometric game, of course. I've played those isometric games. They are my favorites, and I do feel emotions while playing them. For that matter, have you ever felt an emotion while reading a book? Text alone can make you feel a certain way. But it's certainly easier and quicker to make a player feel a certain way when you're already conditioning the player to put themselves into the game from the camera angle alone. And the postmodernist works of 1 and 2 were less concerned with this emotional aspect and more concerned with communicating a message. And music plays a part in this too. The ambient tracks of the early games gave a great atmosphere, but the use of specific songs to drive emotions is a part of this. In some contexts, it's meant to be ironic. Slow-mo kill cams as calm music plays, for example. In other times, it's played sincerely. Way Back Home on the radio in Fallout 3 is a good example. I mean, the show used Big Iron in the first 5 minutes of Season 2, played both for its sincerity and for its post-ironic mean value. In summary, I think you can say Fallout 1 and 2 engage your brain, while the newer games engage your emotions. And those newer games have less of an overarching narrative, because narrative is less important than these specific moments in metamodernism. The focus is on crafting those moments within a Fallout aesthetic. Some examples of these moments: how about leaving the vault for the first time in 3? How about seeing the strip for the first time in New Vegas? How about blowing up the Institute in 4? It's this emphasis on cinematic moments and player feelings that are hallmarks of post-postmodernist game design. And they are, frankly, less meaningful in a narrative sense, but more meaningful in a personal sense, because these are the emotions you're feeling as you're experiencing what your character is experiencing. Oh, and I mentioned the aliens before. Bethesda plays the aliens completely straight with no hint of irony. It's weird. And if we're going to talk about philosophy and Fallout, we have to talk about merch. Fallout, despite being an anti-capitalist mess, yes, it is. Don't look at me like that. Go back and listen again to when I talked about Tim Kane's quote. Anyway, despite being anti-capitalist, it nonetheless sells a ton of merch. That's because capitalism absorbs critique. Capitalism can sell its own critique. I mean, if you doubt that, remember the show's critical of capitalism, and it's made by Amazon. The show critiques capitalism while also driving hyperconsumption within their own merch machine. Metamodernism embraces this contradiction in the same way it embraces the contradiction between sincerity and irony. Modernism says capitalism's good, postmodernism says it's bad, but under postmodernism, capitalism just is. It's just there, and attempts to oppose it just get absorbed into it and become more capitalism. But wait, you say, Ella, you've forgotten some games. Tactics is modernist. The Brotherhood is presented as a correct worldview that seeks to civilize the waste and impose itself on the chaos. The Brotherhood seeks to bring meaning to the wastelanders and opposes alternative worldview represented by Vault-Tec, which the game's narrative treats as wrong. Maybe that's why Tactics is a cult classic that never caught on broadly with fans, but has a small but dedicated fan base. It has a different philosophy behind it. Brotherhood of Steel flopped because it just simply doesn't say anything. You can say it flopped because of aesthetic, but the aesthetic of the series was not as established as that point, so that's just not why. It really wasn't intended to be art or media. It was a product to be consumed. It was not a narrative. The sole reason for its existing was to sell copies on consoles and get interplay into the console market. Same with Fallout Shelter, honestly. Mobile games don't need to have a message. They just need to be a feedback loop to keep you checking that little demon rectangle we're all tied to 24/7. Oh, and I haven't played Fallout 76. I've said that in past videos. I don't care about it. I'm not going to talk about it because I just don't know anything about it. Fallout as a series is a series that spans the shift from postmodernism to post-postmodernism, and that shift can explain, besides the lore retcons, gameplay changes, and aesthetic differences, why 1 and 2 feel so different from later games. Meta-modernist post-irony has taken over the series, and that does undermine what the series started as. What was an ironic social commentary is now an aesthetic vehicle for communicating specific emotions through cinematic moments. Irony aimed at deconstructing Cold War American assumptions and values now just uses post-irony to undermine its own premise, and I don't know that that's a good thing. I was almost objective there.